The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. Albert Einstein. A very good evening to one and all present here. I, Princey Nisha, from the School of Business, extend a hearty welcome to all the participants to the 2 days National Conference on Chances, Concerns, and Challenges in Commerce. Before we move into the knowledge sharing journey, let's invoke God's blessings. I would like to recite the profound mantra Asato ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor ma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All the lines in the prayer encourages us to be our best self and to reside in an enlightened state. It does not seek to fulfill our needs of this world like material gain, success, and personal needs, but rather this mantra encourages us to leave the pain of ignorance, darkness, and death of this world and reside in the celestial realms of knowledge, light, and immortality. Let us pray. Lord, lead us from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light. Lead us from falsehood to truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to the light. Lead us from death to immortality. Lord, lead us to the understanding that we are not limited to our mind, body, and intellect, but we are now and always will be connected to the eternal bliss that connects us all. I now invite Professor Immaculate Mary, Assistant Conference Convener, to deliver the welcome address. Immaculate, over to you.
I think the microphone is muted.
Immaculate, you're muted.
Yes, ma'am. I just was unmuted by the media team. Thank you, ma'am. A warm welcome and a very good evening to everyone present here. It's indeed an honor and privilege in welcoming each one of y'all for our second national conference on chances, concerns, challenges in commerce, organized by the Department of Commerce, School of Business. The aim of the conference is to explore, experience, and elaborate the various possibilities faced in today's competitive world. The two-day conference is structured to explore the holistic learning from the perspective of business, finance, healthcare, and corporate sustainability. I'm extremely proud and happy to be part of the conference today to gain and view expert sharing of knowledge and experiences from our distinguished speakers, Dr. Jabamale, Mr. Raghuram Krishnan, Mr. Rajiv Vasudevan, Ms. Diana Vincent, and interact with all our participants representing many universities, research institutes, and industries. We are fortunate to have the support of a great cadre of encouragement from our institution. Our patrons, Father Sweber De Silva SJ, Rector, Father Dr. Victor Lobo SJ, Principal in absentia, for their never-ending support. Our man of ever-encouraging personality, Dr. Christo Selvin, Dean, School of Business, Conference Chair, a visionary who has been the main pillar of support in making the conference possible. Hearty welcome to you, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our co-chair, Professor Amita, Head Department of Commerce, for her extended support, and our convener, Professor Usha Priyadarshini, who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes for the smooth conduct of the conference. I extend my welcome to all the members of the organizing committee for their tireless efforts, faculties of School of Business for their continued support. Lastly, wishing everyone that the two-day conference to be fruitful, knowledgeable, and express my appreciation to each one of y'all gathered here for making the conference a possibility. Thank you and a hearty welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Immaculate. I now invite Dr. Christo Selvin, Dean, School of Business, to address the gathering. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think due to internet issues, everything delays. Okay, thank you so much for welcoming me, Immaculate. And I could see Jabamale, sir. I met him 3 years back. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. And I could say, yeah, thank you, sir. I could say I do not want to take much time because we have to hear a lot from the learned professors, experts from the industry field. So I'm not going to take much time. We have eminent speakers today and tomorrow, starting from Jabamali sir. I met him when he came to Zyme Institute here in Bangalore. Very close friend to our father principal. And the first day he told me, Christo, you should organize a conference. I want to speak to your. Still, I remember. I carried it for last 3 years, and we couldn't do anything because a couple of days. We tried, but due to our busy schedule, we couldn't make it. And this conference also, because of sir's that word, so I thought, okay, let me go for a conference to hear this expert knowledge. So thank you so much, sir, for inspiring us to organize this kind of conference for the benefit of the society. I hope this conference is going to be, I damn sure that this conference is going to be a fruitful one, not only to the students, but also to the teachers and industry experts, those who are here, and also faculty community, my colleagues. I wish all the success to the team members, especially Usha and Immaculate. I know you people know with your team members, you took a lot of time to think and articulate this beautiful, wonderful, fruitful conference. Thank you so much, and all the very best to the team. And also, I welcome once again. I would like to, as a dean, I would like to welcome all the members, those who are from other institutes, industries, and other colleges. Thank you so much. Over to Nisha.
Thank you, Christo sir, for addressing the gathering. I now request our media team to play the video to project the glimpses of the conference.
Thank you, media team. It has set the right tone to get started. Now, without much ado, I invite Ms. Rajkiran to take over the technical session. Raj, over to you.
Good afternoon, Professor Princey, and thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. And I request everyone to keep your audio muted and also video switched off. A very warm welcome to everyone. And as already the previous speakers have told, School of Business, Department of Commerce, St. Joseph's College is proud to present National Conference on Chances, Concerns, and Challenges in Commerce. Past 1.5 years has been a tumultuous journey in the global history and calls for unprecedented changes to be incorporated for the very survival of business, again proving to us change is the only thing which is constant, making the topic of this conference much more relevant in contemporary times. To give us a practical insight, we have amidst us two distinguished speakers sharing their expertise and experiences. For the first session, we have an individual who lives up to the famous quote of Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Dr. Jabimilai is a globally renowned expert on sustainable development with over 30 years of experience in the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Vienna and Austria, where he has served in various capacities, and eventually he has retired as the principal advisor to the Director General of UNIDO. He has to his credit several degrees with distinctions. He has authored several journal articles, books, and reports. Even after his retirement, he has continued to render as an academician. He has worked as a senior research fellow at the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and currently he is the principal advisor to the Knowledge Management Associates in Vienna and Austria. Dr. Jabimilai is the recipient of numerous prestigious awards. He was twice awarded the UNIDO Director General's Award for Outstanding Performance and Professional Excellence. He is also the recipient of Global Excellence Award given by the Global Indian Association. In 2017, he was given the Dynamic Indian of the Millennium Award by KG Foundation. Sir, it truly is an honor to have you, Misters, and we are looking forward for more learning to you, more learning, sir. And over to you now, sir.
Thank you very much. Actually, it is good morning from Vienna. So it is around 10:30 here. My good friend, Dr. Christo, learned members of the teaching faculty of Department of Commerce, St. Joseph's College, Bangalore, distinguished speakers and dear participants. It is with a profound sense of gratitude I express my sincere thanks to the organizers for giving me this unique opportunity. All through, I studied in institutions run by Society of Jesus. I studied in Carmel High School, Nagarkovil, then did my BA at St. Xavier's College, Palayamkota, MA at St. Joseph's College, Tiruchinappalli, and I also worked in Loyola College. Jesuits play a major role in adding practical meaning to the purpose of education. The purpose of education is to make the students intellectually trained, morally upright, spiritually inspired, and socially committed. I accepted the invitation with cheerful readiness as a mark of respect for Reverend Father Lobo, a good friend of mine, principal of the college, and also my good friend, Dr. Christo. Let me now go to my presentation. What am I supposed to do? It was on, no? The presentation was on, no?
Yes, sir. You just have to go back to the same process again.
Yeah.
Just share screen.
Oh, this is what I wanted to avoid. Okay. It is on the right-hand side, no?
Yes, sir.
Share screen. Yeah, it is here. Okay.
Yes,
and then?
So that PPT that you have opened, you just have to open that. Click on that.
No, click on the desktop, no?
Yes, sir. You can do that.
I don't find it here. Should I? Oh, share, yeah. It comes here. Okay. It's here. I see. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It's perfect.
Okay, you are able to see that. Thank you. Emerging business opportunities and challenges. The key message is the survival of the fastest. Let me go to the next slide. The plight of business in the wake of COVID-19. I say each crisis is an opportunity as evidenced by the development experience of countries and continents. And the type of crisis we are facing now is not economic recession or depression. It is global economic paralysis. Because of the pandemic, everything came to a halt. I don't have to convince you on this. You must have read enough about it. And through the media also, you are watching several things, the ramifications triggered by COVID-19. And we are now slowly recovering through the tenets of new normal. In fact, I am not very happy with the new normal. People are overdoing on new normal. Go back to old normal, and they even say that back to the future. We should go back to the old values, world systems, and the old knowledge. And I think that is too much. What is needed is a better normal. I would say through better normal, we are certainly slowly recovering. Let me spend 2 minutes on the previous global economic downturns. 1930s Great Depression. US plunged into Great Depression of the 1930s in 1929, and it was through until 1932-33. And during this Great Depression, US used the economy as a Keynesian laboratory. And John Maynard's instruments were used to pull the economy out of depression, and successfully. In fact, when Roosevelt assumed office, Franklin Roosevelt assumed office, he said the only fear we have to fear is fear itself. That is very relevant today now. The only fear we have to fear is fear itself. We all will recover, definitely recover. And there is evidence of that. The 1973 oil shock. In fact, 1973 oil shock turned out to be a big blessing. In life, there is always something good stemming from each crisis, each bad thing that happens to individuals, institutions, and also to countries. It was only after 1973 first oil shock we were reflecting on the viable avenues of enhancing energy efficiency. The pattern of production completely changed. I still remember in the early 1970s, I was driving a very old Lambretta as a college lecturer, Lambretta of 1950s vintage, which covered only 7 kilometers for 1 liter of petrol. And today, the two-wheelers, energy efficient two-wheelers, cover 70 kilometers, thanks to the energy crisis, first oil shock, second oil shock, and third oil shock. East Asian financial crisis. We learned a big lesson from that. East Asian financial crisis happened because of high import intensity of export orientation being funded by short-term lenders. It was, in fact, that was my thesis. I measured the import intensity of export orientation of East Asian economies. Unfortunately, the high import intensity, that means without importing inputs, they could not export. Unfortunately, the high import intensity was funded by short-term lenders. In my thesis, I said the day the short-term lenders withdraw lending, importing of inputs, everything would collapse. That happened and everything collapsed. And my thesis partly, I should be very modest, it is with a profound sense of humility, I want to say, my thesis partly predicted the East Asian financial crisis 10 years before it occurred. So it came in the form of a book, The East Asian Model of Development. Unfortunately, no one read. People seldom read. Okay, East Asian financial crisis is over. Then 2000.com. Everybody thought now the software business is completely doomed. No, we recovered very well. They are all doing very well. Software experts, who crossed the border, particularly Indian software experts. The software companies were recruiting the students through campus recruitment for doing software-related jobs, irrespective of the subject they learned. Civil engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, electronic, all these people, irrespective of the subject, because they know that our system of education is preparing students for entry into employment and not for employment. When someone gets an appointment on day one, he is not operational. Only after having undergone 6 months of training, he becomes relevant, she becomes relevant. That's why I say that we prepare students for entry into employment, not for employment. This is the case in many institutions, what is happening. Now what is happening, when these guys join the software companies, having gained 5 years or 10 years of experience as software experts, there is always a quest in the minds of these students to use what they learned in the college. And they try to combine. When they try to combine, they emerge as the professional intellects. This is the new phrase we use. A chemical engineer who got a job as a software engineer in a software company, having gained 10 years of experience in North America or Europe, and when he is able to combine, he is able to jump out. And he joins a transnational corporation involved in the production of pharmaceutical products or food processing and company. So he is a professional intellect. This is a good trend. This is really a good trend. Then 2008 and 2009 financial crisis, the lesson we learned is the private sector misbehaves when everything is exposed to market forces. And we normally believe that liberalization, deregulation, and the exposing everything to free market forces would correct everything. Correct everything. But it did not happen. There is a need. We realize that there is a need for selective interventions to correct market failure. Government failure to correct market failure will be tantamount to an inept policy intervention. We learned a lot from that. Then we started regulating the so-called private sector, which very often misbehaved. Okay. Now, key determinants of converting challenges into opportunities. So life is a series of battles. You may lose battles, but the war. Every time you face challenges. But you have to identify viable avenues of converting challenges into opportunities. And what is needed is enhanced adaptive capabilities and skills to use modern technology and to commercialize new knowledge. In the emerging open innovation and value creation network, this is the reality now. We are living in an era of what is called disruptive technologies. We are actually living in an era of creative destruction. Rapid, revolutionary, and complete changes make the old things stumble, and we are all exposed to new things. We have to get ourselves acclimatized, and in order to survive in an internationally competitive environment where new opportunities arise, we need to be very creative and very innovative. Knowledge is a source and innovation is a force. So the preparedness for the creative destruction being triggered by disruptive technologies will enable us to survive in an internationally competitive environment. Okay. Now, when the pandemic surfaced, we started classifying sunset industries and sunrise industries. Now, I should not read out, it will be totally boring. What is contained in the slide is self-explanatory. So kindly don't expect me to read out word by word. I think it will be a boring exercise. You see the list of sunset industries, from travel to events and conferences, and sunrise industries, digital production, structured knowledge, and disruptive technologies, traditional value systems, and these things. Now, what is happening is, in the beginning, this was the list. And when we realized that there was a change, some sectors were shifted from sunset to sunrise. The best example is automobile. In fact, the best example, Indian automobile is the best example for benefiting from deregulation, liberalization, etc. Before the onset of deregulation, the entire market, Indian market, was preserved for two car producers, Fiat and Ambassador, due to inapt policies. And they were not exposed to competitive pressures for efficiency gains. For 4 decades, it's 4 decades of looting. The car market was looted by two companies. And then came the waves of liberalization. What happened? These cars disappeared. And within 2 years, there was proliferation of Indian-made foreign cars. And in a true globalized world, what will happen when they are exposed to liberalization and deregulation? Firms will undergo 3 L's: linking, leveraging, and learning. You first establish your link with dynamic sources of growth, which are normally across the border. Then, having established your link with the dynamic sources of growth, you use your enhanced adaptive capabilities and skills. We have a lot of skills, we have a lot of resources. Leverage those resources and skills with those dynamic sources of growth. In that process, you learn. Learn to do what? Learn to invent something that befits the country-specific context. Tata Indica is the best example. Within 4 years after liberalization, Tata came out with 100% indigenous car of world class. At that time, it was very popular. Now people seldom use Tata Indica. I think we should salute the Tata company for this. They were linking, leveraging, and learning. In that process, they were able to invent 100% indigenous production of a car of world class. So now, during this pandemic, what happened? Suddenly, the automobiles and industry was plunged into deep recession. And then what is happening is the pattern of consumption changed. Normally, rich people own 1 or 2 cars. Middle income people would have at least 1 car. And poor people who could not afford cars, they were all using other means of transportation. Now, during the pandemic, people started avoiding their travel in public transport. They also want to have a car. And the demand for second-hand cars increased. And when the second-hand cars started fetching more price, high price, because of the change in the pattern of consumption, even by the lower income and middle income and poor people, what happened? The car owners started selling the second-hand cars, and they got very good price. And with that money, they're depositing that, and with easy installments, and they started buying new cars. The demand for cars, new cars, really increased. You can see automobile was actually number 3 here in the sunset industry. Now it is shifted to the sunrise industry, and you can see that there is a great demand, dramatically increased demand for new models of cars, varieties of cars. And now there is a big demand for the pollution-free cars, cars which run on the batteries. So these things always happen in the process of transformation. And let me go to the next one. What are the new opportunities? Let us now confine to the topic assigned to me, emerging opportunities. There are 4 L's. There are so many opportunities surfacing in the space of 4 L's. In saving life, that is L number 1, life. In creating sustainable sources of livelihood, then new style of living and new mode of working, and leveraging with the virtual world. That's, I think it is not visible here in the, okay, let me see. 4 L's are life, livelihoods, lifestyle, and liberating with the virtual world. Excuse me. Cyril. Hello? Cyril. I need a glass of water if you don't mind. Hello? Eva. One glass of hot water would come to me. Yeah. I beg to be excused. This would not have happened. What to do? I got up at 2 o'clock early morning, 2 a.m. in order to attend the other conference organized by Ramachandra Medical College. Okay, now let us see what is now happening with each other. Emerging opportunities in saving lives. High quality face mask. People think that, okay, there's a big demand for masks and sanitizers. So you get into the production of sanitizers and masks, you can mint money. Not necessarily. If you produce very high quality of mask, some mask items are actually sold for 75 rupees or 95 rupees. There's a huge demand for it. Psychologically, the consumer thinks when you buy highly priced mask, you are protected, your life is saved. This is the thinking running in the minds of the customers. And then high quality, particularly bio sanitizers. You cannot produce different types of sanitizers, but there is a big demand for, so you have to be very selective to capture the market niche. So there is a big demand for very high quality of mask and big demand for bio sanitizers. So if you get into the production of this, you really spend money, seize an opportunity from the crisis. Okay, thank you. Then instant testing machine equipment. 3 years ago, if you had Googled instant testing machine, hardly 2 or 3. Today, if you Google that, 120. How did it happen? Because instant testing machines are very frequently used now. Within a minute they test, within an hour they test the magnitude of any health-related problems. So all these things surfaced to seize new opportunities. Then hands-free door opener. People are scared to touch the door opener, the so-called and the door openers. They are very, very, very hesitant to do that. So if someone could invent a hands-free door opener, you go near, automatically it opens because of the electronic impulse. There's a big demand. Ventilators. I don't know. Most of the institutions suffer from the acute shortage of ventilators. Now the situation improved. There was a very good supply response, I would say. Our producers are very, very brilliant to increase the supply response to capture the niches. Immune boosting food products based on biodynamic organic agricultural practices. This is booming like anything. That's why we say that go back to the traditional knowledge and go back to the traditional practices. Many research institutions in Africa have invented many things based on the information they collected from the people who live in remote villages. I know in Sudan, there is an institute called Institute for Research on Medicinal and Aromatic Plants. And that institute based in Khartoum invented that one extract, and the extract from a very wild plant, a plant which grows only in the desert. You don't plant, you don't water, you don't manure, it grows in spite of you. So that extract from that plant's leaf could cure open wound of diabetic patients. The market is to the tune of, I think, $50 billion a year. For want of money and technical assistance, they could not get the patents registered. It's a debt investment. I always say that the government should embark on a program to commercialize the research findings, existing research findings of institutions based on traditional knowledge, traditional medical knowledge and practices. Now it is booming. It's coming up like anything. That's why now we talk about holistic medicine. A Latin American doctor once said, if an allopathy doctor knows only his subject, he thinks he knows his subject thoroughly, and does not know anything about Ayurveda, Siddha, and homeopathy, he does not know his own subject. This is the statement made. That's why the government is very keen to introduce holistic education. They even talk about one nation, one health system, where they want to have a unique blend of all types of. For translating this into deeds, I think they should establish at least one central university in each state for promoting holistic medicine. Holistic medicine, this phrase is coined by me. You may not find anywhere. I may be wrong or right. I am not a medical doctor. This morning I told Ramachandra Medical College staff members also, and maybe one central university for holistic medicine, where we combine everything. Allopathy, homeopathy, Siddha, everything, and take all good aspects of these things. And then, because this word holistic is used 28 times in a 54-page document on the new education policy. That's why I was freely at ease in coining this phrase, holistic medicine. Okay, commercialization of the traditional medical practices, I already said. Human repellent. You must have heard about the dog repellent. If you walk along the streets with a stick with that electronic impulse, the dogs will run away. Like that, human repellent means the human being a person imbued with the infection, COVID infection. When he comes near you, it will automatically give you the signal. So post-COVID-19 rehabilitation centers, many resorts are remaining idle, particularly in Kerala. They are all being converted into the post-COVID rehabilitation centers. I visited one in Puttanthoppu, which is very near to the sea. It's almost like Bali, Indian Bali. And there they make optimal use of the facilities to rehabilitate the COVID patients. Okay, these are all I have just listed. You have to do as students of commerce and business, you should go deep into it and prepare a complete list. I have given some examples. Okay, business opportunities in creating sustainable sources of livelihood. I once in my UN career, at one point I was posted in Sudan. And at that time, the two countries were at war. South Sudan was fighting with the North Sudan, 21 years of war. But in one particular region, Nuba Mountain region, the people maintained durable peace. The fighting factions signed a peace agreement, and there was not even a single violation of the ceasefire agreement. They were all asking for peace dividend in terms of sustainable sources of livelihood. So when I landed there, I wrote to my headquarters and I wrote to my counterpart, Ministry of Industry, saying that I feel enormously incompetent to make interventions befitting our mandate. Our mandate is to foster economically efficient, ecologically friendly, and socially desirable pattern of industrialization using technologically advanced means and ecologically sound means of production. So if I go and preach that, they would say this guy is totally irrelevant here, because 4 million people stranded, 2 million died because of the war. So I said, leave me alone for 6 months. I will come out with a program. And if if it does not work, please dismiss me. So I coined a program called Humanitarian Plus. If you don't use the word humanitarian, you won't get funds there. Humanitarian Plus. I went to villages, asked these internally displaced people who went back to the areas of origin and church, what are your priorities? Just a list. Simple questionnaire. Very simple questionnaire. Priority number 1, we want to own a piece of land. Priority number 2, we want some assistance from the government, international agencies, and NGOs to increase agricultural productivity and reduce post-harvest losses. And number 3, we want some assistance to get into semi-processing for further processing and further processing into final product. I said, okay, there is a niche for us. We captured it. And I managed to get 1.4 million from the Japanese contribution to Human Security Fund. And to make the long story short, we eradicated extreme poverty in 147 villages of the Bima Mountain region. 3 years, nobody wanted to look at us. They did not care about our intervention. When they heard about the impact and compact from the target beneficiaries, they came. The World Bank sent a team, and you can Google that document, Community-Based Development Project in Sudan, Lessons Learned. In that report, they say what UNIDO did is the best model for post-conflict recovery and development in terms of sensitization, target beneficiaries, local empowerment, tangible impact, and sustainability. This is needed now. This type of intervention is needed to create sustainable sources of livelihood, particularly for the migrant workers who ran away from many states to the areas of choice, areas of origin. They all went back to the areas of origin. And there is no source of livelihood. That's why they went to other states. And if this particular type of intervention could be made, I think this will have a tremendous impact on that. And the next one is biodynamic organic agricultural forms. Murunga, it happened in the last 6 years. We never realized that this is the green gold. This is the gift of God. Murunga tree is a gift of God. And, murunga powder, murunga leaf, murunga powder, murunga oil, and murunga stem, murunga honey. These are all being sold at the international market like hotcake. Almost all the pharmaceutical companies, food processing companies, and cosmetic companies are using. In fact, if you combine murunga oil with aloe vera gel, that will be the best face cream. I use it. We make it at home. And my friends, at least 2 friends, who held coveted positions across the border, they were in the States and they were also in the Philippines. They all abandoned everything, came back to the village, converted their grandfather's land, traditional family land, 500 acres of land. One Mr. Jayachandran converted 400 acres into a Murunga farm. Actually, he's growing other plants also, trees also, but Murunga is the main, is this one. And then another friend, Mr. Platoson, he converted nearly 600 acres into Murunga farm, booming like anything, spending money like anything. So if you Google the demand for Murunga products, it is growing at an average annual rate of 18%. And the global market is to the tune of $10 billion. And the supply response is only 30%. Cuba has converted because of the growing demand for Murunga products, because of the high iron content and vitamin C. Everywhere it is being used. So because of the huge global demand, Cuba has completely converted the country into Murunga farm. I said the supply response is only 30% because unless it is 100% organic, based on biodynamic agricultural practices, it will not be marketed in foreign countries. You will get a border rejection. So there are many conditions. So my friend, Mr. Platoson, is now networking with many people, getting into subcontracting arrangements asking people to convert virgin lands into Murunga farms because he is not able to meet the growing demand. His supply, he is networking with many buyers across countries and continents, and his response is only to the tune of 30%. Can you imagine? So this is a coveted product. One should get into this. Local resource-based low-cost building material production is another one. And the Ministry of Urban Development has a separate wing. They have invented many new machines and devices at giving it at incredibly low price. You keep an equipment like a bicycle just by putting the red sand in that and say just to press it hard while cycling. It's a good exercise for you also. You can easily produce 200 big bricks based on the local sand per day. It will be a big source of livelihood for this. So these are all the product areas which can enhance the sustainable sources of livelihood. Let us now go to business opportunities stemming from new style of living. And because of the new style of living, home theater, home gym, home garden, and the competent and reliable home delivery, then chartered aircrafts, converting ideal resorts into service apartments, they are all booming. These are all few examples I have suggested. And you can also try to get more by doing some for research. So everybody wants a home theater because they don't want to be exposed to a big crowd in a big theater. And now, actually 1 year ago, home theaters could be built at the cost of 14 lakhs. Now, even for 4 lakhs on installment basis, you pay only 2,000 rupees per month or something like that you can have. You just ask the company, they will install that. If you convert a room into a home theater, I think you can watch any film. And then home gym, and this is also booming. Home garden, you don't have to do that. You don't have to convert the terrace. There are specialized companies. You just give the terrace to them. They will come and do that. And every month you pay a limited amount. And using the technological marvels, they monitor everything, whether everything is okay with each plant. And they will tell you harvest this one. All these things are done thanks to the technological marvel. And home delivery is another one. Chartered aircrafts is another one. Then converting ideal resorts, which I already mentioned. Okay. Then let us go to business opportunities in the virtual world. If you are able to turn out a tiny product of a big product for a transnational corporation with a high degree of precision, complying with the international standards and quality control norms, you participate in the global value chain. You may not believe someone living in Lagos. Lagos is the previous capital of Nigeria. Now Abuja is the new capital. I had been to Lagos 17 times. The general reputation is upon landing in Lagos, you get killed. The crime rate is very high, very high. And it's very difficult to survive there. Living in a small hut, in a slum, in that city, someone is manufacturing rubber-based non-automotive component for aircrafts. He participates in the global value chain. So all that you need is, as I said, enhanced adaptive capabilities and skills to use modern technology and to commercialize new knowledge. Now, what is happening in the villages is amazing. Some type of neo-industrious revolution is happening. Before the evolution of the first industrial revolution, 18th century industrial revolution, there were no factories, no workshop, but the demand for goods and services was increasing. And the household sector responded. Because there were no factories, no workshops, nothing was there. So the household sector responded to meet the growing demand for goods and services. That was called industrious revolution. Now, a neo-industrious revolution is now happening everywhere. You take the example of bakeries selling baked products in the cities. To the best of my knowledge, in the Kanyakumari district, all the bakeries based in Nagarkoil, I don't think they have bakeries and run factories to bake the items, bun, cake, or anything, all the bakery items. No, they don't. All these things are subcontracted to villages, and to the households, individual families. And every day they supply. The real problem is this household sector, the families which manufacture all these items to be sold through the bakery, they are not able to turn out the products complying with international standards and quality control norms. So what is needed is institutional technical assistance as a free good and business support services. With the effective institutional technical assistance and business support services, we can get the household sector effectively empowered. In Egypt, what is happening? They get a lot of inward remittance from Egyptians working in Gulf countries. The government came out with a policy. If each household sector proves that part of the inward remittance is used for their productive empowerment in productive activities and related services, they get the same amount as a grant, not loan, free. If your family converts 20% of the inward remittance during a year, which it gets from the relative working in a Gulf country, and they say that we are involved in the production of this. And because of this policy, each house became a bread-producing country. They all eat long bread, in the morning. That's a breakfast. And they captured the entire regional market. The entire regional market is supplied by breads turned out by the household sector. This is needed here. Then digitize information for product development. There is a difference between digitizing and digitalizing. Digitizing means you digitize information related to new and dynamic sources of growth. Okay? And you use the digitized information for digitalizing a sector. All the sectors are relevant here. We talk about digitalization of agriculture, digitalization of industrial production, and digitalization in the health sector also. No sector is exempt from this. So you digitize information. When you digitize the information, what happens? You are able to empirically capture the world's best practice in what you do, what you want to do, in world best practice in processing, design, and marketing. For example, I am producing a product A, and I want to know the world's best practice in processing, design, and marketing. And then once I see this is the best practice using the digital production system, and then I want to know my distance to the best practice. I may be here, the distance may be very long. So minimum is to know what is your distance to the world's best practice, and then try to identify viable avenues of reducing the distance to the best practice. Thereby, you participate in the global value chain very effectively. So next one is the way ahead is 3 C's: connect, comply, and compete. You connect yourself with the dynamic sources of growth, which very often comes from foreign direct investment. And it brings knowledge and technology and skills, everything. But of course, you combine your skills and capabilities and resources with that. Then comply with the international standard, then compete very successfully. Now, startup and stand-up. You must have read enough about startups. If you look at the history of startup, particularly in India, there's a very short lifespan. Everybody, starts something, and within 6 months or 1 year, they fade away. That's a big issue. There's a mania for getting into startups, but they don't stand up. So only by keeping pace with the rapidly changing facets of new business realities, you can survive in an internationally competitive. But that's why I said it is not the question of survival of the biggest or smallest, but the fastest. Only those who keep pace with the rapidly changing dimensions of surviving in an internationally competitive environment will survive, others will fall apart. Now, I want to make a reference to innovation. There are 3 types of, as I said, knowledge is a source, innovation is a force. And you have to be very innovative in the sense, unless you try to be, so it is like this, you used to develop actually critical mindset. When I was a student of economics, I always used to question the theories being taught by my professors. When my professor told me, Adam Smith, the father of economics, said, the end of production is consumption. I said, no, The end of Adam Smith was wrong when he published his famous Wealth of Nations in 1776, which separated economics from ethics and politics. He said the end of production is consumption. No, the end of production is learning. And learning is continuous. You learn from birth to death. That means until you breathe your last. Learning is continuous. So when I produce your products, just this product, I show you this cup. When I produce this product, I immediately want to learn from my competitor, my comparator, my customer, my distributor, and my supply agents. And in order to effect further improvement to my product, so that my product is superior over other products, this is to survive in an internationally competitive environment. So this is a must. So that's why we say we have to be very, very innovative. So there are three types of innovation systems. I will, in 3 minutes, I will summarize. And in an ideal national innovation system, new knowledge is generated by institutions, exploited by laboratories, and commercialized by dynamic firms. I cannot think of any country where this type of high degree of interactive framework exists between institutions, laboratories, and dynamic firms. The only country where it prevails is Singapore. And what is the resource base? Big zero. Virtually nothing. We say that countries are, according to Ricardian theory of comparative advantage, countries are supposed to convert to their resource-based comparative advantages into competitiveness. No. Today, countries are enhancing global competitiveness without resource-based comparative advantage, using human ingenuity as the infinite source of wealth creation. Take the example of Malaysia. Palm oil palm was originally transplanted from West Africa to Malaysia. Malaysia did not have oil palm at all, not even a single one. And today, oil palm is a star, Malaysia is a star performer, and oil palm is a potential source of wealth creation. In Africa, in West Africa, the tree still is a tragedy, development tragedy. It is it's not productivity is very low. And so what is the difference between oil palm in Malaysia and oil palm in West Africa? In Malaysia, they applied science and technology to all aspects of farm development and product development, farm management and product development. They injected the incidence of technical progress into that. So productivity increased, and now today they are producing 83 varieties of disaggregated products based on palm oil. And today Malaysia is establishing palm oil research center in West Africa. See the tragedy. And originally the plant was transplanted from West Africa. Sectoral innovation system. The two sectors in which India is doing extremely well are the pharmaceutical industry and in space research. We are doing very well. In all other sectors, what is happening is institutionalized inactivity in R&D and innovation, because most of the research work is done by public enterprises, and the private institutions' involvement, private companies' involvement in R&D and innovation is meager to the extent of being negligible. And so what is happening is we have scientists, we have engineers, and we have big institutions, and but the impact, the research intensity is low, innovation intensity is low. This is what I call institutionalized inactivity and R&D and innovation. Because once they join research institutions, they are no longer scientists. They are supervisors. That's all. Incremental innovation is the common innovation, which is very, very prominent everywhere in developing countries. For incremental innovation means you enhance your capabilities to use what has been already invented. That happens through effective transfer of technology. Effective transfer of technology takes place when you have the capacity to acquire the right technology, assimilate it, adopt it, learn to invent something new. See, Boeing has already been invented. There is no need for engineers to reinvent Boeing. What is needed is a set of pilots to operate Boeing. I hope you understand the difference between. So incremental innovation is very common, and we have to encourage institutions to participate effectively, firms participate effectively in incremental innovation. So let me go to the next one. Required policy space. And actually, as I said, what is needed is effective institutional technical assistance to be rendered by the governments as free of charge. Then business support services free of charge. Then co-optation, then collaborate to compete. That is co-optation. Collaborate to compete is the new industrial theology. Instead of collective response to withstand competitive pressure, is proven to be. The problem is when you expect the stakeholders to collaborate, there will be coordination failures. Coordination failures are bound to occur, but coordination failures can be corrected through effective knowledge dissemination about the benefits of collective response. That's why the cluster networking and all these things are very prominent now. Then the investment facilitation platform, market intelligence network. So all these things will be sources of the support system to be rendered by the government, if possible free of cost, for fostering sustainable development. Be part of the current transformative shift. There's a current transformative shift. And the current transformative shift is triggered by disruptive technologies. Disruptive technologies are advanced digital production system, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, additive manufacturing, big data management, cloud computing, then electromobility, then Internet of Things, Internet of Services, Internet, and now they even talk about MindNet, which is very dangerous, MindNet. These are all part of the Great Reset. But we have to go beyond that. I don't know whether you read the two big reports with the same title, The Future of the Workforce, one by the World Development Forum and another one, the Ford Foundation, The Future of the Workforce. Now, Industry 4 is underpinned by all disruptive technologies which I mentioned. Now, Industry 5 is very narrow, very simple. What is Industry 5? In Industry 5, we all will be conditioned, irrespective of whatever you do, conditioned to work with smart machine, robots, and artificial intelligence. We will be conditioned to do that. Now, it will inculcate a fear in the minds of the students. Oh my God, what will happen to me? Will I get a job if I am not able to? Now, believe me, it will bring more benefits than what you suspect. When computers were introduced in Kerala, the government, the ruling party was Communist Party. The Communist Party organized agitations against the computer, saying that all the typists would lose job. Computer was interpreted as a substitute for typewriter. They did not realize that computers could produce millions of jobs. In computer-related activity services could produce millions of jobs. Hold on, please. I'm sorry. So it could create millions of jobs. They did not realize it. And today, the same state, Kerala, is encompassing 4 state-of-the-art tech parks. And they are going to establish one more. So when new things are discovered, don't be frightened. The only fear, again, I would repeat what the President of America, Franklin Roosevelt said, the only fear you have to fear is the fear itself. That, of course, what is going to happen is everybody will be a professional rolling stone, except civil service. Those who get into the civil service, others will be professional rolling stones. There may not be a permanent title of appointment, but as you enhance your capabilities and skills, and you will be able to get yourself empowered in that. That's very. So please inculcate, make optimistic claims about the job opportunities of all these new technological marvels, and you should not be frightened by that. As done by computers, these technological marvels, the so-called smart machine, artificial intelligence, and robots will create more job-related activities, and the people who constantly upgrade their capabilities will be effectively empowered. That's very clear. Now, the future of the workforce. 1 minute. Yeah. How many more minutes?
Sir?
Yes.
So we are almost reaching the end of the session because
I am also almost reaching the end of the session. Give me 1 minute, I will wind up. Okay.
Sure.
So I already said this. So these are all the things, intelligent digital solution, digital capability enablers, digital marketplaces, digital, everything is driven by digital devices. And we have to be mentally, the future we want, not to fear technological marvels. As I said, don't fear that. And important to be a part of rapid revolutionary complete changes. And you be the change. Instead of being part of the change, you be the change. Thank you. I'm through, madam.
Yes, thank you so much for such an informative session, sir. And honestly, you reminded me of a saying that Elon Musk had given. If you really want a successful business, don't look for big, huge ideas, but instead observe the society and try solving those problems.
Correct.
Then immediately that will be your business, which is going to be very successful. So thank you for giving that hands-on experience and so many years of research that you've done and experience that you brought into this conference. And I request the participants, if you're having any kind of questions to ask our speaker, you can unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat box where we can ask the questions.
In the question box, what I see is, dear sir, if you can wind up in 5 minutes, if you can wind up in 5 minutes, 3 messages, nothing else, no question. Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, sir. It was a personal message that was sent to you, sir. Like
okay, no
around
problem, no problem. So I will be most willing to answer questions.
Yes. Any of the participants, if you're having any questions, you can please unmute yourself, or you can use the chat box to type in your question and send it across.
I think I made unquestionable statements. Huh?
There are a few of the statements that were very much unquestionable for sure, sir. And there is one message that a person has sent. If you can just talk a bit about the SDG goals, sir, the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah. I am personally highly appreciative of MDGs, not SDGs. MDGs had 8 goals, 18 targets, and 48 indicators, measurable indicators, very crystal clear. Unfortunately, the goals were not achieved. The deadlines normally are always dead. Many countries could not achieve the MDG goals. And then the world came out with the Sustainable Development Goals. Is, my God, how many? 67, 150 indicators, 350, 165 targets, and 350 indicators. It is very, very broad, very vague, very loose, but eventually the main focus is on eradicating poverty. It's important to realize that poverty cannot be eradicated through charity. It's not possible. That's why Sustainable Development Goals suggest many interventions and which could rekindle new and dynamic sources of growth. And through wealth creation, poverty could be eradicated. And we have to wait and see how many countries are going to achieve. There are some indicators. Using those indicators, we can measure the degree of success. In fact, many countries have appointed experienced people as SDG advisors to the president and prime ministers. And they are all preparing reports using the parameters to assess the extent and the effectiveness of policy interventions and institutional direction in achieving this. My feeling is many countries will fail to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. That was one question that was posted, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time that you spent with us and also sharing your knowledge. And it was indeed a very insightful session, sir. So we thank you very much.
Okay. I can now leave the meeting, I believe. Am I right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, participants, we are already having the next speaker of the session. And for the second session, we are having Mr. Raghuram Krishnan, who is the Director of Finance for Adobe India, Korea, and Global FP&A Shared Services. He is responsible in building multi-year business plans, organizational structures, divest and investment plans, center for excellence, best practices, and also expansion. He is also a recipient of Adobe Founders Award. It is one of the highest and most prestigious honor in the company for living the core values of genuineness, the innovativeness, intense involvement, and being an exceptional being. Prior to Adobe, he has been with Oracle, Symphony Services, CSC, and Olam International. He believes the mantra for success has been to always over deliver or to deliver much more than what is expected out of you. Mr. Raghuram also believes a strong mind and a healthy body will lead to a better overall personality. He shares the passion of sports towards cycling, hiking, and squash. He has successfully completed cycling the world's highest motorable road, that is the Kardungla Pass, and indeed a challenging but yet a brave attempt. Mr. Raghuram, it's an absolute pleasure to have you as our speaker for the session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Rajkiran, and good evening, everyone. I am exactly in the midst of your coffee session, and I hope I can make it interesting enough for you to go through this hour with me. I also find myself very fortunate to be part of this panel, looking at the speakers that we've had for today and tomorrow. Everybody seems to be one of the highest in terms of the roles that they're playing, and I am probably a very small speck in this whole journey. What I'm going to be talking through, you've seen in your flyers, is around the expectation the industry has around the young and upcoming students into the industry. How has finance changed as a function over the years? Touching upon a little around the FP&A function that's had the maximum amount of changes in terms of its presence. And we will touch upon some aspects that's also changing how finance is shaping up itself. So I'll start sharing my screen if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Please do go ahead.
Thank you. So these slides are just placeholders, so there's not much to worry, just to take the boredom of you having to look at my face through the next 1 hour. This is a slide I like to start with. Attitude is contagious, is yours worth catching? And for me, this is a very special statement because everything in life we do, we are drawn to somebody who's more interesting than what we are. And that's where attitude plays a huge role, irrespective of what parts of that person you're looking at. Some of us try to improvise on those attitudes. Some of us try to replicate or just copy those. And I feel that I like to lead by example. I will not usually advocate anything that I don't practice as a policy. So it is quite important for me to live through these values so that people take me seriously when I am sharing my thoughts around business or otherwise. And that's how I look at it. So I always find this very interesting. I hope you do too. Coming into what the industry and how I look at things from an industry perspective, I'll try and keep this shorter than the 45 minutes that was set for me so that we can spend more time around questions. So what we usually see when somebody enters an industry is, and I'm talking specifically around the finance function or operations function, is we are in a hurry to learn our job description, pick and run after that, and trying to prove that we have started understanding what we're supposed to deliver. We fail to spend enough time understanding the business itself. And that's something as a practice I have been pushing a lot of my team members to spend the first 3 months to understand what the company does, what do we do in terms of our products, how do they impact in day-to-day life, and then you come into understanding what do we do as a job. Why I do this is, if you don't get connected to what you're doing, you will never be able to deliver the kind of results that we expect out of you. You may be doing in terms of a transactional activity, but you may not be leaving an impact. And for those of you, I'm sure Adobe is a household name, but if you don't know what we do and sell, the two products that's very popular and almost every one of you would have had some kind of experience using it, Photoshop and the PDF documents. And there's a lot more that happens beyond those two, but these are the most popular ones. The other ones that we are doing in the last 10 years is analytics. Every time you log into one of the e-commerce sites, your profiles are being analyzed using our software at the back end, whether it's Flipkart or Nykaa or any of these e-commerce brands. It actually is doing the whole targeting around your profile. And almost every e-commerce business in the country outside of Amazon uses our software. This is just a heads up on that. So that's why, I asked my team members to understand our products. And why this makes a difference is to also get into the shoes of your customer, client, partner, whoever you're working with. What typically we fail to do is we look at what the job description is, we look at what are the set of activities that we have to deliver, and we go on delivering that. And I will share examples where I say this because it doesn't look like a theoretical conversation. And most of what I say are having practical experiences that I have already implemented or done or experienced myself. Now, finance as such, if you see as a function, our mindsets are very different to that of a sales organization or an engineering organization. We are very task driven from mindset. So we are usually looking at activities based on a checkbox kind of activity. So we will look at aspects, we will deliver it, we will move on. We don't have the habit of going back and checking on the impact of what we do. And this is where the gap starts building up between performers and those who are just delivering activities. And I'll give you an example of this. In 2019, I was asked to take over the entire finance team in India, which is the FP&A function. They had multiple businesses run by different people. And all of that was rolled up under my leadership. And one of the first things I did in the first month of taking over is I interviewed each and every one of them in the other teams who were rolling up under us. Everybody had spent nearly 5-6 years in the company delivering some good work, no escalations or anything of that sort. But something wasn't making sense to me in terms of its impact. So while I interviewed people, everybody was happy to showcase the amount of reports they build, the macros they have built, the design templates that they've done, and all of them were very proud of that. The question they weren't able to answer is, what's the impact? Do you know if your current report or format is actually helping the business make decisions? The reason they couldn't answer is none of them have spoken to their business partners, which is very common in the industry. And this is where, I am bringing that point to say that as we prepare students to come into the industry, you have to start changing your thinking to what is the impact of my work? What is the expectation that's coming in from the customer? That is what I mean by saying in their shoes. You have to always not react just because a task is given to you. You have to go back and look at, why is this person asking this question? What is the end outcome that this person needs out of it? Most of the time, you will realize people who are asking you for reports or analysis don't know why they're asking it. In the sense, they think that is the response to it. But the moment you start questioning and asking them the impact, you realize a lot of what they ask is not necessary for what they want to achieve. It changes the way your conversation happens. Now, with this team that I was interviewing during that time to understand what they were doing, everybody used to send monthly reports of 20 GB, 30 GB. As finance guys, we love making these massive files with pivots, and half of them can't read what those pivots are. For 5 years, they've been sending these reports to very senior people in the company. And my answer to them was, if you don't know if nobody has come back to you asking questions, I am concerned that nobody's reading it, while they felt that they read it and they don't have any questions. And what I did to test that is I asked them to stop sending all those reports for that particular month. I did that conversation in Jan 2019. In the first, that is March, I stopped them from sending any reports. And I said, how many of your business partners respond to us, we know is looking at your report. And I can tell you, amongst the 18 people who were actually sending reports to multiple business partners, we just had one response coming back, asking why a report was not sent, not anything else. The reality was that you were only checkboxing your task and not understanding what your business needed. And this is where the gap starts happening in corporate world. And everybody thinks they're doing a good job, and possibly yes, but the impact is no. Now, what did we change is I did a whole project around called Voice of Customer. We went and interviewed every customer to find out what was making sense out of what we were sending. And most of them said they don't even look at those reports because it had so many pivots in it. They don't understand where to start and end. Nobody conversations with them around the impact or or talking through numbers. Talking through numbers is the most boring part, I would say. But now you would see that a lot of institutions have started storytelling as a concept with numbers, because as such, numbers is not very easy to have a long conversation with. Now, with this, what we did is we changed all of that and we stopped sending reports to these people. We withdrew most of it, about 80-85% of them were withdrawn. And we realized that none of them needed any of them. So what this did is it saved me nearly between 30 to 50% of the utilization of people. And I actually reassigned them to a lot more work. Now, this could have changed, even if you looked at it before. And this is where I think as teachers, as you look at students, you have to ask them to start thinking differently. Don't take tasks based, because the world is no longer looking at it that way. They are looking at a business partnering engagement in the industry, irrespective of what role you take up in the corporate world. Business partnering becomes very critical. And I will kind of walk you through some of how this whole partnership has evolved in the last 15-20 years, and where is it heading to, and how does a commerce student coming out of these institutions look at it. And a lot of my team members come from various backgrounds, in terms of being chartered accountants to MBAs from premium Ivy institutes to institutes from outside of the 4 metros. And we do have, of course, some of them coming in from other sources of finance backgrounds. But what happens here is we see the thinking is very different. And in finance, you would see there are 3 big pillars. One is accounting, which is a very rule-based activity. You are less on being creative in accounting is dangerous because that's when all the scams happen. But otherwise, you look at that it's a very rule-based. It's a yes or no function. And that's where Dr. Jeba was kind of alluding to on the automation, robotics, RPA and stuff like that. Those are the kind of areas where you will see a lot more of RPA robotics happening, because those are very rule-based functions. It's a yes and a no, and there is an action on that. So those kind of activities will eventually move into that, and it's already started. The second pillar would be taxation, which is an interpretation of tax. A significant part of it will become also rule-based, but a lot of them are interpretation, which needs a human intervention and understanding. And the third pillar is FP&A, which was formerly called MIS. It's called business partnering, business finance. Now, fondly being called as FP&A pretty commonly. So that is the one function that is actually growing. And I started the global FP&A shared services a few years ago in this company, which wasn't there as a concept, but we kind of set it up. And today it is contributing to the company's global reporting structure. Now, what is changing in this function is what are the aspects. I'm not going to touch upon each and every line item. You can kind of go through it, and I can also share this with Usha at a later stage if you guys need it. What is changing is digital transformation, and cloud is something all of you are hearing. It has its own set of learnings that's coming out of it. But what we are also, many companies are missing with the whole shift to cloud or SaaS-based model is the cost of cloud itself. Now, cloud, obviously, whether you're using AWS, which is the Amazon Web Services, or your Azure from Microsoft, or any other third-party cloud vendor who's going to store your data, that cost is very expensive. It has become currently for us as a company the second largest expense line item after payroll and cost and compensation. Now, that is something most companies were not anticipating to see. And while you may say that all of what you pay for cloud costs can be billable as part of your revenue, it's not that straightforward. It is not straightforward because the manner in how that business runs or that costing runs is very different. It is used internally for engineering purposes. It is used while we sell a license. When we sell a license of Photoshop, for example, you will get 20 GB of space, cloud space, or you can even buy a terabyte of space. The pricing is based on that. Now, what I can't control is how my engineers use it. Or, I'm selling a license to you at a heavily discounted price, and I'm still giving you 20 GB and I'm paying the vendor at a higher cost. So this is what the industry is learning. And I think this is an exposure you can bring into people are trying to understand SaaS and artificial intelligence. I won't repeat what Dr. Jeba said. I think he beautifully articulated that things will change. But at the same time, I don't see those as necessarily job loss risks. It will create new responsibilities. But again, upskilling is very critical. If you are living in a rule-based resource kind of job, you need to start exploring and upskilling yourself to ensure that you have other skills that will complement, because the rule-based ones will slowly get automated at a certain point in time. And concept of money, I mean, this is something most of us as CFOs have been thinking through. What does money look like in the future for us, with cryptocurrency, and what is going to be new in the future is how we have to deal with it. Where do we bring that in the balance sheet? How do we accept it as a form of business? Is something, it's exploratory in conversation, but it is a very interesting thing to see how things will change in the future. Of course, work from home, remote work, all of this is new, but I think as a company, for us, it was a learning of how well we could adapt to this. And as IT companies, I think it was a lot more easier than many other verticals of business in transforming from work from home to physical space. For us, space has been our own campus most of the time. Globally, we believe in setting up our own campus. So it did not impact for us from a cost perspective that much. But the running cost definitely helped us manage. But we were in a space where our business picked up during the pandemic, unlike many who had to take through the downturn that happened. FP&A as a business finance function, what has changed? I will talk about this in the next slide. It's graphically represented, and it may be a lot more easier to understand that aspect of it. And what else is evolving is, I do give talks around leadership and about finance. How does finance become a partner in the business? And my role has evolved. I started off as a travel expense accounting person in 1999, and I have grown to become a CFO today. What has changed since then is the opportunities that keep coming your way. And are you just delivering what you're expected to deliver, or are you thinking like a strategic business partner? And I'm usually involved around organizational structure designing, business structure designing. I have built go-to-market structures, which is basically for sales organizations, which is currently implemented in the company. I also have written policies around compensation, because when you start exploring your thinking, and as commerce professionals, and I can tell you, our thinking is way more different than many other people who operate in that system. We come with a very logical thinking. We are built that way compared to how the others would operate. So our contribution becomes a lot more significant to balance excitement to reality, where kind of that helps measure and keep companies in place. And most of it, what you would also see is FP&A as a function has been responsible for either way the success and the failures of companies, because that has become a kind of a very important aspect of business decision making. Now, leadership qualities again, as students have to start thinking of this as a quality you build over time. If these things don't come in when you get promoted to a certain leadership level, it doesn't automatically switch on in your head to become a leader. These are qualities you carry and that is recognized over time, and that kind of catapults into a much larger personality of yours. But it is something you have to start grooming and be conscious about from early stage on. And again, irrespective of what you say, whichever jobs we are in, I think work-life balance is a very common topic that you will hear. And I think you have to learn to master the work-life balance, irrespective of what you're doing. Sanity will not stay with you if you're focused on only one part of it. And it will catch up with you because you could probably say, I will focus only on my job today, and 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, when I'm a little more comfortable, I will switch over to doing other things. I can tell you that doesn't come that easily. Your focus changes. So start developing a certain attitude around putting interest or what I call myself as me time. And you did hear about my cycling expeditions to Himalayas, and I love cycling. So I do go on these expeditions for 2 or 3 weeks. Covering, I've gone to Bhutan and covered their highest mountain, or I do a lot of crazy stuff like this. It is important for us to find balance. And I can tell you, it is critical for you to find that and come back. And you realize that you start inspiring people when you do those things. And I'm just a year away from 50. I'm looking at competing at a national level for squash now. I've just started learning about a year ago. My son and I built 2 cycles in the pandemic because we didn't have anything else to do. But he and I are planning to do the same Himalayan stretch in 2023, celebrating my 50th birthday, and I want him to experience. So you have to find these things at an early stage. Don't wait for it to be too late. And switching back into what the FP&A world has changed, this is where most of your students would see value, is how this whole role has shifted from what it has been built as. Now, historically, those who have understood how this has evolved used to be called MIS, Management Information System, which was just a after the fact reporting engine. Most of them would wait for the month end, quarter end, consolidate, close the books, run reports, and just share it. And at that point in time, it was a very critical aspect because the leadership function would not have an idea about data until the books are closed. So a lot of them were not real time. And today, what has changed from that is every data is real time. Every hour, a salesperson can see what the business is. Every day, the CEO can look at what the revenue is like, or what the revenue is going to be by end of the quarter based on deferred revenue calculations. So this role has no longer the importance of a historical reporting or a after the fact reporting, because it's become real time. You are always now looking into forward thinking. This role has matured itself from an advisor role, which was a few years ago, to a strategic role or a foresight kind of role, insights to foresight, what we call. And you would see that this is changing, right? Every few years, if you start looking at that, it will start telling you what was Excel, while we still use it, but not predominantly anymore. My team, we've shifted to reporting on dashboards. We don't use Excel so much to send reports off to people. How things have changed from record to impact, and I was talking about that at the beginning of my session. And what was standard has again gone into, today what we refer to them as data mining and simulations. And most of the time I'm building structures and design about what will the business look like in 2 years' time, and where should I be investing, what should I be doing. These are not just mathematical calculations of how a growth rate should be applied. I'm looking at industry data, I'm looking at marketing data, I'm looking at headcount investments, I'm looking at performance evaluations and stuff like that. So if we have to start doing investments, when is the right time? Divest was a word you heard in the introduction. Is how do I look at that and look at changing the same headcounts or cost, moving in from one bucket to another to bring better impact? So this is how the whole role has started evolving over time. And currently we are in this stage where you would see, which is simulating or foresight stage. And a part of this role will get automated. No longer anybody would want an FP&A guy to report historical data. That may be easily available for anyone to see. They will be looking at exceptional data analysis around what the future is going to look like, or how does a short term and long term look like, which was also there in the past, but this is a lot more real time. I can build this data every month to look at what is changing based on market conditions. The next two slides are again just an interpretation of the same, slightly different variations when you look at how it's changed between reporting versus analysis. And a lot of my team now, the example I was telling you, in 2019, I changed all those Excel files were all changed into dashboard reporting. I made sure every leader in the company globally had this app on their phone and on their laptop. And after that, the report just gets pushed into their app every month. And what the team does today is to have conversations around the impact of what those numbers look like. What could it look like? What does good look like if we had to do something differently? And they're giving them all those insights from what's happened, and they're giving foresights into how we can do it differently. Now, we've seen that impact change significantly. A lot of leaders have come to me saying, we didn't know finance can have this impact. So here is where I feel the thinking has to be kind of helped in most of the students. A lot of them who come in, I've been hiring a lot of millennials quite recently in 2020 and 21. We find some of them, picking up this kind of thinking. Some of them are super smart, and I've really enjoyed working with some millennials. But some of them who have the old school thinking, wait for instructions, they kind of take a longer time to pick up and develop on these aspects. So we have started seeing this bridge between those thinkers, which are the ones I'm talking about, actually accelerating much faster and taking bigger responsibilities at an early stage. The others are at a very linear growth, and it takes them 2 to 3 years to kind of figure out what they're up to and what they're actually trying to deliver. And how can you help students think is, I would say, take them off the thinking of a task-based approach to anything they do. Even if you look at it from a institution program, you would look at, completing syllabus by a certain time. That could be a tick mark to say syllabus is completed, or the number of subjects that we had to finish by a certain time is completed. But the question is, does that mean anything to the student, right? Was that just a checkbox for people to complete their task, or are we looking at impact? And that's why you see a lot of private institutions have come out today as a business proposition to say, we will help you understand how to crack the exam. And that's the gap we are trying to bridge rather, is, how do we change and how do we bring what the private institutions are doing into the early education stage itself, so that when they come out, they're actually, the thinking is a lot more different to what they are used to thinking. And this is my last slide. I think I'm a little earlier than I expected it to be. Here is how, like I said, how the generation of change that's happened. And this is something I have been trying to implement in my own team. In any large team, you have different types of thinkers. And I keep asking them, where do you find yourself in this journey? And sometime next month, we are doing a workshop around what kind of a resource, which part of the generation are you today, for them to kind of map themselves. And then we start identifying where do they need to grow to, what is aspirationally there for them to grow. It is evolving so fast that it is difficult for people to catch up at the same time. But I think it is an interesting phase where a combination of things are happening. One is automation is happening on one side, where there is a fear of what will happen next. Then the second phase of transition is moving from Excel based or very heavily loaded manual intervention to automation and dashboard from a reporting perspective. And the third is the scope of this role itself changing constantly. And we are in that phase where we're trying to catch up with all of these three, and or at least accepting some of these and changing into the third one. So there is a lot of anxiety I too see amongst a lot of youngsters that I keep speaking to, is, or even the senior people, is what happens to my job in few years time. If I am at a senior person, can I learn things differently? For me, the answer is yes. Learning never stops. It is in our minds to believe that we can continue learning. And for me, hiring the smarter people than I am under me challenges me a lot more. And I'm constantly trying to innovate new ways of reporting and addressing things, because I can't be sitting with my past laurels and expecting my team to do better. You have to get the right set of people. You should expect them to challenge you. I want to be in the edge of my seat. And that's what makes me a better leader. That's what makes me thinking much more ahead of what the industry is changing. And normally my way of leadership has been, can I think earlier than what the organization wants me to deliver? In fact, when I say that, what I mean is I have presented an organizational structure for finance for 2023 already, and it has been approved, and I was the only person in the company to actually do that. And they said, why is a finance guy presenting an organizational for 2023? And I've actually told them why that's important and why the world is changing and why they should do these investments in 22. And we will evolve that. But, thinking, that's my job, to think many steps ahead and start developing those investments early on, not to wait for 22 to end when I start thinking of what should I do in 23. My job is to always keep thinking ahead and start investing and building. And this is what mindset should be. This can be applied in anything, and this can be applied with students and anybody that you work with, or to your own self. It is very critical to start thinking ahead and be more plan-based than be reactive-based. I'll kind of hold my conversation here. I'm not too sure if I digress from some aspects of what Usha was kind of briefed me on. And I'm happy to take questions, or if there is anything that you want me to address on, to kind of look at it.
Thank you, sir, for that session. And indeed, I think the very first slide that you projected, the attitude that you carry should be such that it is contagious. So you should always aspire for that. And I think throughout this session, you upheld that particular aspect. And, if the participants, if you're having any kind of questions towards our speaker, please do unmute yourself, or you can use the chat box to type in your questions and send in.
Thanks, Raj Kiran. Yeah, I can keep talking, but I don't want to be doing that. I think interaction is the best way of learning, and hence I kind of stopped a little earlier, 5 minutes earlier than I had planned for.
Yes, sir. Your presentation also, it was like a pakka budget, sir. To the points, crisp and clear. So.
Yeah, like I said, I like to keep it as a placeholder and not to read a slide as it is, because, everybody else can read a slide better than I do. The intent is to talk the story behind it.
Yes, sir, definitely. If any of the participants are having question, the host has ensured that they have enabled the option of unmuting. So you can unmute yourself and you can place your question directly, or you can also use the chat box where you can type in and send it.
Or even if you don't have a question, if you want me to elaborate on something also, I'm happy to do that.
So now there are few of the students, those who have joined in as well. A few of our master students, masters, those who are pursuing their masters. So in your session, you told there was a point when you told that the mantra that I follow is to always over deliver or deliver much more than what is expected. And you also spoke about another aspect of how you're able to see a difference between these millennials, where one is progressing even without getting the instructions, and another set of students, or the workforce, where they wait for the instructions and their growth is much linear. So if you can just elaborate a bit more on it so that our students can also be benefited out of it.
Lovely. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, I mean, when I say over deliver, and even I use the same logic around communication, it is better to over communicate than not communicate. And that's a thing I keep pushing with my team. I'm like a broken record when I keep saying that, is because the better we communicate, it's easier to solve or understand things than to make assumptions. Now, when it comes to the other aspect that you were talking about, over deliver, is I'll give you a couple of examples. I find that to be easy to understand. Now, we always, if we have to pick up a new task, right, we are always trying to play in a safe space in terms of setting a certain goal, and we want to overachieve it. We always underplay what we are supposed to deliver. But I went through a training about 5 years ago. One of the sports personalities in Australia, it's called the X Factor. What this person kind of drives as a program, and his logic was set a goal that's impossible to achieve. And he did mention that you will realize that your mind is much more smarter than you imagine it to be. And I did a few. I was the only guy in whole of APAC to actually achieve that goal, while a lot of them set it up and I didn't realize that I could actually go deliver something that I couldn't believe I would do. Now I set some goals around some task that was given to me, and this is again business impact task, and I didn't even know how to do that, honestly. That's why I was a little, I had put up a very low achievement aspect. And what they do is, when you set your goal, they ask the people in the room to score it, or one to 10. And many of them scored me at, from a project perspective, they scored 10, but from the goal I had set, they scored me at 2. And that forced me to up the score. When the next cycle happens, they up the score to 9 and 10. And actually, I went on to achieve it. And that's where I said, your commitment should be to such an extent that you go beyond what you think you can deliver. Because we always underplay, because we think, let's play at a safe space. What it is doing is, it is restricting your mind from thinking beyond your capacity. You're playing it a safe space all the time. The moment you try to explore beyond, you may fail, and that's fine. I think the more you fail, the better you get. And that's my policy too. You start doing better. And one of the reasons you did mention about the Founders Award, and I'll tell you, there are 25,000 employees in the company. This award was instituted 20 years ago. 153 people have got it in 20 years. I am the second finance guy in the history of the company of 35 years to get it. Normally, finance guys don't get this award. It is only at a global level. It is based on the impact you leave. And I have picked up my learnings from these things and done constantly in every area that I have done. I have set goals beyond what I can imagine. eventually I've gone on to achieve, or I've gone on to achieve more than what I thought I would do, even if I didn't hit the ultimate goal. So this is where I mean, and I keep pushing my team to deliver like this. And simple example is CSR activities, right? You have a session tomorrow around that. Is in my team, only 3 of us were doing anything to do with community services. And I was trying to encourage them for nearly 2 years to be part of it and understand and help students, mentor and coach them. No one would come forward. They found it to be, I wouldn't say waste of time, but they said not something that was interested. So I added this to their goal sheet, saying that you need to spend a minimum number of hours that you commit in a year towards this. Everybody put 3 hours, 5 hours, while I would put 20 or 30 hours in mine. Today, I have a team where 98% of them are participating. From 3, today we have nearly 40, 45 people doing this. The impact of some of these things when you put it on paper is very different. And our team is the only team in the entire company globally to have 98% participation in CSR. So what I'm trying to say is you have to start penning down certain actions and certain goals which are crazy. And you will go on to achieve it, whatever it be, whether it is professional or even if it is outside of that. That's where I look at it. To the second question around the millennials and the or the more experienced people who take time to understand is, see, what happens over time is mindset. We like to play in safer space. We like to do things that we are comfortable doing. We don't want to push beyond the point because we have a fear of failing. So with this restricts a lot of people who are in the system to take up newer responsibilities, and the learning curve they feel is much longer than what it could be. Whereas millennials, what I've started seeing is they're fearless. They want to try 10 things, and they may not even be good at any one. But what I've seen is the intent and their interest to do new things and many things is very, very contagious. And I love that attitude, and I'm okay with people failing. I'm never going to hold a gun at their head, and that attitude is why I am actually bringing them on the forefront and showcasing some of their activities with the larger group to say, when you have a leader who says it's okay to fail, you better pick up something and try. Otherwise, what happens is, like Dr. Jeba was saying, if you don't upskill yourself, if you don't challenge yourself, you're going to be in that average space and you will be unable to grow because the competition is coming from everywhere now. What we define as a pyramid in the organizational structure, the bottom of the pyramid is where millennials are coming in, and they will travel up that chain much faster than somebody who's already sitting in the middle of the pyramid or even at the top of the pyramid. So they're fearless from that point of view.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think as professors, we will also take this. This will be a key takeaway for the professors as well, because we do encourage our students to take up different activities and also challenge themselves. But the key thing that you told, to fail better, I think we will, start incorporating in our classes as well. And
yeah, sorry, Raj. I just want to state one thing: is it's better to fail early, but also it is important for people to ensure that you're accepting failure not as a negative thing, but as a learning. The more you look at failure as a negative aspect, you will have less people participating because the impact of what will happen from those. If you kind of flip that over and say we will see this as learning, the more you fail the better you get, as long as you're not repeating the same mistakes, right? If you're doing the same mistake, then there is a problem with that person. As long as you're learning from it, then it's good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so from the perspective of the professors and other academicians and scholars, those who have joined in the session, you are balancing your professional life and also having a passion towards something which will help you in keeping your mental balance or, work life, and also your passion towards sports. How exactly are you doing it, and what would you suggest for the these professionals, those who are already into their work life, but they are trying different methods to manage their other co-curricular activities, but it's not going on that very well. So what would you suggest them?
Yeah, see, what is the biggest fear of not doing both or being open about doing your co-curricular activities, right? Is a socially or culturally in the industry or anywhere else, we've always seen that those who have a lot of other interests are not good at their work. It is always considered to be whiling away a lot of time. And this mindset has to change, right? You can be successful doing a lot of things. And it doesn't mean that working for 14 or at least clocking 14 hours a day means you're actually effective. And that's the mindset that's changing. It's changed in the IT industry a lot more, but may not be necessarily across all. But I think each one of us, if we start accepting or if we start encouraging people to have these multifaceted interests, along with what is the core interest of your job or your education, I think that will slowly start catching up. And that's why I said I lead by example. I don't just tell people, you should be having a work-life balance and I keep working forever and not do anything else. I make sure that I practice what I say. And the reality is in corporate world, when, we all pick up these kind of interests in India, especially, is that the fear of losing your job. And I have had cases where I have gone on these for 3 weeks. People have come back and said, oh, we didn't feel the need for you. Maybe we don't need you in the company. And that's fine. I mean, people will say what they want to say. If you have done enough to leave an impact on your job, you are not going to lose it just because somebody says it. And you have to start believing in some of these things. And I have constantly encouraged people to go and do it. I have a lot of people who reach out to me, who have started new things. I'm also a sketch artist. Pastime, I do that. I am an animal rescuer part-time. I try to utilize as much as time I can. And my working culture is very different. Not that it is the right one, but I start my day at 4 a.m. Most part of my job in terms of the professional work is done between 4 and 8 in the morning. I'm used to getting up early. I have dogs. I walk them early in the morning. My day during 9 to 6 during the day is honestly a waste of time. I'm just attending meetings. I'm responding to a lot of things, but I'm not able to do what I'm supposed to do. So I kind of have found this way to do. I shut down early, but weekends, I again work early morning, but I still go and do my cycling every weekend or some other activity that I need to do. So yeah, I think you have to believe that you are good and you should not be responding because somebody makes a statement around putting fear around you, because that's never going to end if you don't believe in yourself.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that.
Sir, I have a query here.
Yeah.
So, Raj, this is Farzana.
Yes, please, ma'am.
Yeah. Sir, actually, you spoke something about CSR activity. I have a question from the finance point of view. So you have to ultimately report to your investors and the interested groups. So how much actually, I just want to know the practical knowledge about the CSR activity. How much in a year you can allocate for CSR activity? Is there any percentage as such? For materiality, we used to tell 10% of revenue, right? So like that, anything like CSR activity, the maximum line, because the company should not end up telling we spent in CSR, so we could not provide so much of dividend like that. So the window dressing is possible. So is there any limit as such?
No, there is, there is a mandate to spend 2%. That's the budgeted one. And the company, it depends on every organization, right? Do you want to spend more than that? Is how good a company feels they're able to allocate funds to it. So I don't think companies would say we've spent more on CSR, hence we can't take care of this. It's very unlikely because there are people looking at the spend. It is critical, but it is not necessarily at the cost of something else but your employees. Because also what you should realize is employees also rate you for best employers and all of that. That doesn't come just from doing CSR activity. There's a whole host of activities that happen around. So I think there is equal amount of importance. The question that we have most of the time if you go around any organization, you'll realize that there is a lot of unspent money out of CSR by the end of the year. No matter how many activities you do, the amount of money that you can spend is very limited, while the requirement is much higher, because there are a lot of mandates and rules how you can operate with an NGO. So there are limitations around how you can do it. And hence, every year we come to a stage where we have left money irrespective of how many people are participating. So we are always catching up with that gap. We have not been in a position to overspend that money so much that it impacts employee experience.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. And we are also having just a note for the participant, and I also have a question that has been posted in the chat box to you, sir. So, participants, please do use the link in the chat box. That is the feedback link. Please ensure that you will submit it within 5:30. The form closes by 5:30. Please ensure that you will compulsorily fill it. Only based on the forms we will be giving you the certificates. Okay, coming back to the session, sir, we are having Professor Sana, who has told excellent session, sir. Thank you. It would be great if you can suggest on how to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot to do with your own self. First is you need to understand where your comfort zone lies. Are you able to define that in the first place? And then you can determine how to step out of that zone. And what does comfort zone mean, right? In my own understanding is trying to stay doing the same amount of, not taking risk beyond what you're doing today is my definition of comfort zone. So if I am doing something that's not waking me up and not challenging me every day, that's my comfort zone. And that's how do I get out of it? Is you have to start taking fear out of your system. And why do people not attempt anything more than their comfort zone is? The fear of failing. And there is a lot of questions that runs in your mind saying, if I have done enough to make myself good at this stage in my comfort zone, why should I try something beyond that, which can probably be questioned as my incompetence or a negative rating in my own space. Now, when you start putting a lot of questions that are the delimiters for your ability to do something more, is when it stops you from doing something new. Take it in small spaces. Try to do things that you are comfortable to achieve and feel happy about. And slowly you will start getting that confidence. So you need to start breaking barriers. The way I kind of say is, set the bar high every time you start putting your goals. Don't rest for what was good last year or whatever that period you're referring to. Your goal every week, every month should be different. It's like, any activity, right? Even at work, if I'm doing something, I expect it to be better tomorrow. If I'm cycling, I would say, how can I do 10 kilometers more this week? Or currently today, I'm starting a India level cycling challenge, which is the home activity of how many calories you burn in a day over next 14 days. So you have to keep pushing. I mean, there will be enough things in your mind to tell you not to do it. This is what you fight with. You fight with your mind, not with your body so much. And you have to keep talking to your mind more often to make you feel that much more confident to experience it. I'm not sure, Sana, if I completely answered your question, but all I would say is just go try it. Don't wait for the right day. That never comes.
Thank you so much, sir. Participants, we are left with another 3 more minutes. And Sana also has responded, thanking you, sir. So, yeah. Participants, we are just left with another 3 more minutes. If you're having any questions, please do unmute yourself or you can use the chat box. And a quick reminder for the participants, again, please do use the link in the chat box to give in your feedback about both the sessions, and your certificate will be given based on the form that you will be filling, and it will be closed by 5:30.
And I can tell Sana that I was extremely nervous coming into the session. I've never had to stand in front of so many people with their PhDs, doctorates, professors, teachers in my life. I have probably stood in front of business leaders, never been this nervous. So this is probably that new thing for me to come out of my comfort zone.
Kudos to you, sir, on that.
Thank you so much, sir. That's an inspiration. Thank you. Sana here.
Thanks, Sana. And I want to thank Usha for reaching out to me and looking at the flyer. I was quite nervous. The kind of folks you have speaking to you are extremely intellectual in nature, but there is no other way but to start somewhere and start doing what you think is right. And I wish you all the very best. I think we are at the hour, and thanks for having me over.
Thank you so very much, sir. And the session was indeed very, insightful, both in the manner of your work as well as how to balance with your passion that you might be having. So thank you very much, sir. A quick vote of thanks. Gratitude and attitude are not challenges, but choices, and showing gratitude is one of the simplest yet powerful things human beings can do to each other. I take this opportunity to thank the speaker for today, Raghuram sir, as well as Javamalai sir, for spending their valuable time and imparting their experience and expertise with us. I also thank Reverend Rector Father Sweber de Silva in absentia, Reverend Father Principal Victor Lobo in absentia, for their encouragement towards the School of Business. Dr. Christo, our Dean, we thank you for your unfailing faith in your staff and your constant support and presence. It's much appreciated. I thank heads of the department, Professor Amita and Professor Sarah, for their guidance. I sincerely thank Professor Usha and the organizing committee for their committed and diligent work in making the conference a success. Thank you to all the participants for registering and being active during the session. Your time and energy spent here is much appreciated. Last but not in any ways the least, I thank my colleagues for their presence, their input, their cooperation, and constant guidance. Thank you all and have a pleasant evening ahead. So with that, we come to the end of today's session. A quick reminder for the participants. The feedback link has been posted in the chat box. Please do ensure that you will fill it. The form will be closed by 5:30. Okay. And if you're having any kind of hassle that you're facing,